a lot of people have in their mind is the AI has to be perfect. And that shouldn't be the test. The more your business take advantage of that ability to digest a lot of information and answer complex questions, that can be valuable.
You are listening to CEO Perspectives, a podcast by the Conference Board.
Welcome to this episode of CEO Perspectives, a signature series by the Conference Board. CEO Perspectives are conversations that take an objective, nonpartisan look at a range of subjects that matter most to business leaders. I'm Steve Odland from the Conference Board and the host of this series. And in today's conversation, we're going to discuss AI, artificial intelligence, and the CEO, specifically how CEOs should think about generative AI's impact on their business and what are some of the risks and benefits involved. Joining me today is Joel Trammell, an entrepreneur, author, and CEO in the tech space. Joel is currently developing a ChatGPT-powered tool for managers, as well as a whole lot of other things he's going to talk about today. Joel, welcome.
Great to be with you, Steve.
So, Joel, tell us briefly about your background and your work so far in AI.
Yeah, so I guess I'm one of those old guys now that, I go back to 1985. I was getting an electrical engineering degree, but it would have been a computer engineering degree, but my school didn't have that. So I took every computer-related course I could take, and one of those was an AI programming course. And of course, that's almost 40 years ago. And the thought at that time was AI was right on the precipice. It was only 5 years away from dominating and being the technology that you need to understand. And of course, we had to wait kind of 35 years or 40 years for that to happen. But now we appear to be on that precipice.
Yeah, so you were working in AI long before anybody knew how to spell it.
Well, it wasn't even brand new then, but it was certainly, thought of as the cutting edge in the future. And it had certainly, it has had many applications over the years, but those applications have generally been pretty narrow and very specific. And, obviously the new revolution is something that's a little more general and has applications in broader range of fields.
Well, I think a lot of people just started hearing about AI recently, and obviously ChatGPT was part of that. But, just back up for a minute. Not everybody knows what AI is in general. Give us your view of how you would describe it.
Yeah, well, AI is generally described as, trying to teach computer systems to mimic human intelligence. But when I say that, I always put the caveat in, we're not really trying to mimic human intelligence. We're trying to mimic perfect human intelligence, because we're not trying to create a computer system that makes as near as many mistakes as the typical human does in doing any process. We're trying to create kind of a perfect system to augment humans and provide just another better tool in the arsenal to be productive.
So, am I oversimplifying it in saying, look, folks, this is just the next evolution of software, but it's software that works a little more autonomously. And, at some point, people are saying it may approach sentience, but, we're not nearly there yet.
That's right. We're not to the point where you've got to walk down the street and wonder whether that thing walking next to you is a human or is some sort of computer creation. We're a long way from that.
Well, we work in New York, Joel. So we walk down the street and wonder of that a lot. So
yes, and we're not trying to mimic the human. I mean, one of the examples I use is if we created a computer that perfectly mimicked that you couldn't tell the difference between our current president and the last president, whether it was real or not, I'm not sure that would provide a lot of value to people. So,
that's an opening for a late night show. But all right, so that's sort of what AI is now. A lot of CEOs are just trying to get their arms around this because this, admit it, AI has sort of been the realm of the IT, the CTO, and the CIO. In the past, it's kind of been in the background, but it really is pretty core to differentiation of company strategies now.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously it's industry by industry and use case by use case. But, one of the fundamental differences this time, previously AI was in the realm of STEM, traditional STEM uses. The people who excelled were the math types and the programmer types. The interesting thing about this technology, particularly ChatGPT, the generative content, and then the ability to generate graphics and images from verbiage is that, it really leans heavily on language skills, and it also leans heavily on artistic skills, being able to recognize what is a good graphic or whatever. So I wrote a letter to my company a few months ago that was really a fundamental difference, that the people who are going to excel probably in implementing the latest technologies, it was kind of going to be the revenge of the English majors and maybe the philosophy majors over the STEM people who have, kind of owned the last few decades from a technology perspective.
Well, and that's because, the latest evolutions of AI have really gone into more generative AI, which is generating text, it's generating art and images, and it's generating music and so forth. So it's really the newest, hottest evolution, isn't it?
That's right, exactly right. And so the applications are in those areas of creating content, answering questions. We're well past the Turing test model of, can a computer mimic a human in such a way that the person on the other end of the conversation can't tell the difference. And certainly with these new generative models, they can carry on natural language conversations in a way that just wasn't possible only a few years ago.
Well, so how should CEOs be thinking about their business models as it relates to AI? I mean, should they be thinking about radical transformation of business models, or should they be just thinking about this as AI as tools that help them speed and more efficiently affect their current business models?
Yeah, I think it certainly depends on the type business you're in, right? So there are certainly areas, obvious areas of usage, customer support. You have complicated customer support where you've got to ingest a lot of information, have a lot of information accessible at a given time, and be able to answer fairly difficult questions. AI obviously can perform now at a level equal to or superior to humans. And that's really important, the test. I think a lot of people get confused when they talk about AI. Car driving is a great example where the test a lot of people have in their mind is the AI has to be perfect. And that shouldn't be the test because, in cars, for example, 35,000 people in the United States are killed in car wrecks every year. The test should be, is AI better than the human driver, right? And so the same thing from like a support perspective, AI doesn't have to get every question perfect because anybody that's called a customer support line knows that sometimes you don't get the right answer from a human either, but can it be more efficient? Can it be more effective in providing service to the customer? In that case, absolutely. So the more your business take advantage of that ability to digest a lot of information and answer complex questions, that can be valuable. Obviously, some businesses that's only going to be in the support area or in a minor area of the business. Others, it could be major.
Yeah, it's interesting. We always look at these tech breakthroughs and we say, okay, this is going to transform the world. I remember a conversation with my daughter about 10 years ago where she was, really excited about, as you said, autonomous driving technology. And she said, in 5 years, nobody will be driving cars anymore. Well, that was 5 years ago and everybody's still driving cars. So I think,
right.
You have to, I think you have to look at these things as iterative kinds of transformations, and new technologies come along, but you have to figure out how to use them, and it just takes a while. So I don't think we should be thinking about HAL taking over the world tomorrow, right?
No, I have no concerns. I mean, I read the letter that some people wrote around that. That is at this point not my concern. That's going to happen. I mean, long term, could something like that happen potentially? But yeah, we're still a long way away from that.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the top risks and, alternatively benefits of the tools that exist today?
Yeah, I think certainly every CEO should be investigating and have active programs to jumping in to seeing where it can provide value in their organization. You certainly shouldn't just cover your head and say, oh, that sounds science fiction. We're not going to fool with that. So I think you've got to be engaged. And again, the skill, interesting, repeat, the skill set you may be looking for is different than what you've traditionally been looking for in technology. So that's an opportunity maybe to find the right people in this space. I think, the risk is you certainly could be left behind from a productivity perspective if you're not taking advantage of these tools, just like when computers first became available, when word processors first became available, when Excel first became popular. Nobody did hand calculations for stock analysis anymore. It was all in an Excel spreadsheet. And so, you're certainly going to see that areas that are commoditized. I think there's a great opportunity in some of the legal areas where we've got so many laws, no lawyer could possibly know what all the laws are, and simplify laws and contract writing, and some of that stuff is an area where this to me has tremendous potential, but it's not going to do everything for you.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to think about it, and there's also risk to this, to the implementation here, particularly when you don't know where the IP has come from, you don't know what's happening to your IP, you don't know who you're stepping on from, potential discrimination. So, these are all the things. What are some other areas that business leaders should be worried about?
Yeah, I think it's unknown yet how IP is going to play out, but I think what we've seen, over the last 20, 30 years, IP has been harder and harder to defend in the information economy. No longer is the secret sauce going to be protectable. And so speed to move is often the protection against that, your ability to move faster than your opposition, even if they know, pretty much what you're doing and how you're doing it. So I think you have to certainly take an active approach here and try to be ahead of it on using the technology.
In one of the most recent conference board surveys about AI, we asked what positions in the company people thought that AI could, would really endanger. In other words, you could be replaced. And one of the top positions that was in danger was the CEO. How do you feel about that? I mean, I believe that there's leadership is still required somewhere.
Well, yes, I have mixed feelings on that. I spend a lot of time training CEOs and trying to explain to them how to do the job. But, if we're honest, most CEOs, certainly a large percentage, 50, 70%, depending on what kind of numbers you look at, fail in the job. So, and it's not a very well understood job, in my opinion. Most people don't get to do it for very long. They don't get multiple stints at doing it, so you don't get the opportunity to learn about it. And so it doesn't surprise me to some extent that they feel a little like, hey, maybe there's some AI out there that could do this better than people are doing it currently. CEO job certainly requires having access to a lot of information and the ability to digest that and keep that relevant. And certainly there are plenty of CEO uses. Before I did this interview, I asked ChatGPT all the questions I thought you might ask me and reviewed those just to see if there might be any ideas that I wouldn't have thought of. And certainly CEOs can use it in that manner to answer difficult questions, to prepare communications to the company and say, how might this be received to the company, personalizing communications to people as well, understanding people's personality and saying how, if I'm talking to this type person, would the communication best be received? These are all certainly uses that could be valuable to the CEO.
Interesting. Jack Welch once said to me that a bad business model will eat any CEO, no matter how good they are, and a good business model will make any CEO, no matter how bad they are. So, there is the variability of the business model and how it fits the times, right?
Sure. There's a lot of luck involved, in successful businesses, getting the timing right. I mean, a great example, Tesla with the electric car. People think Tesla invented the electric car. And of course, if you know the history of the auto industry, there were electric cars competing with gasoline 100 years ago. Electric was the first kind of dominant technology. And then many people tried along the way. And finally, Tesla caught it at just the right time. Now, was that Elon Musk's brilliance or the timing right? Who knows? But both played a part, probably.
Yeah, and I'm voting for steam personally.
Yes, steam was originally a well-used propulsion system as well.
Yeah, you wait, it'll come back. So we're discussing AI and its impact on the corporation and CEO. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
Are you ready to transform your business and stay ahead of the competition? Artificial intelligence is quietly reshaping the global economy, optimizing manufacturing processes, and transforming how users interact with popular platforms. Harnessing the power of AI can exponentially enhance your business's effectiveness and efficiency. However, navigating the risks associated with this transformative technology is critical. Privacy, integrity, the economy, and humanity are all at stake. That's why the Conference Board is your go-to resource for the expertise and foresight you need to leverage AI to its fullest potential and make strategic moves that propel your business forward. Unlock the possibilities AI offers your business. Visit tcb.org/AI today to access trusted insights for what's ahead and guidance on navigating the AI transformation.
Welcome back to CEO Perspectives. I'm your host, Steve Odland from the Conference Board, and I'm joined today by Joel Trammell, an entrepreneur, author, and CEO in his own right. Okay, so we were talking about before the break about how AI is transforming the organization. How does it impact organizational learning and development?
Yeah, I think that is a huge opportunity. Broadly, teaching is something that I think AI can be very good at. Teaching needs to be individualized to the pace of the learner. If you've ever done much teaching, sometimes you need a heck of a lot of patience and taking things in small bites. And those are things that AI can be particularly good at. There's an MIT professor, Ethan Mollick, who shares on Twitter often various prompts he's used to explain. He'll say, explain this concept to me like I'm a 10-year-old or something. And, AI can explain it at that level. Then, okay, explain it to me like I'm a college student or whatever. And so I think, learning and development's a huge opportunity. That's where we're doing some work around helping managers and leaders who often face difficult questions, having a kind of a thought partner that we can pair them with, that they don't have to worry about, is the information confidential? Is somebody going to tell what they said or whatever, and can help them solve difficult challenges in the leadership area.
Yeah. Now we talked about AI and what CEOs should be thinking about and so forth, but it really impacts deeply through the organization, right? So how do you think, what do you think are the applications of AI that sort of the middle level or frontline managers should be thinking about?
When you're trying to understand something in a short period of time, so gathering lots of information, summarizing, kind of capturing what is the current best practice, what's the current norm in an industry, those kind of things are AI is very good about. It may not come up with the latest cutting edge, because basically what AI is doing is looking out, at least the generative, content models are looking out in the world and guessing what the next word should be based upon all the data that they have assimilated. So it's very good at kind of capturing what I would call the zeitgeist of the current thinking in any area. So if you want to develop and test your strategies and how people are going to react to things broadly, those are all uses that I think have interest. Creating ideas and saying, what are different ways we could approach this problem, and just being a thought generator, I think that's also particularly valuable.
Yeah, and it goes back to linking the learning and development side too. I mean, great frontline managers should be good teachers or good coaches.
Absolutely.
And it can actually help them be better at organizational learning and development, rather than in addition to directly for the individual.
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, everybody, anything, a lot of people don't appreciate the fact, typically when you're building a company, you hire a bunch of people who are in a job for the first time they've done it, because that's the reason they took the job. Most people don't go take the exact same job they've already done before. The good people, of course, want to move up. And so not only are you as a CEO potentially in a first-time role as CEO, but your first level manager, that's probably his first time he's been in that role. And your director, that's the first time they've been in that role. And so building these continuous learning organizations is critically important if you want to be successful.
Yeah. And, if you are brand new in leadership, your first question is, well, okay, you're faced with an opportunity or a problem, however you want to term it. And what do I say? What do I do? This is the kind of thing that AI can actually help coach, a manager on, and help them be better coaches for their people.
Exactly. And starting with a draft is always a lot easier in refining the draft than it is starting with a blank sheet of paper. How should I send this email? What should I say? What should I think about? Right.
Yeah. And that goes kind of to, the old fashioned way of thinking about apprenticeship. Now, apprenticeship in the trade still, it takes, some hands-on learning, but apprenticeship from a leadership standpoint is always dependent on the previous generations of leadership. This helps speed that, and maybe gives you some new things to think about that maybe your organization hadn't considered.
And leadership is something, of course, that has been written on extensively. So it's not hard to gather, the information, gather the best practices. Really, the challenge with that is curating. And again, this is something that AI is good, is simplifying it down. What are the top 3 things I need to think about? Because there are, thousands and thousands of books and tomes on leadership and management, obviously.
But so, one way of thinking about it is AI is just a fancy search engine, but it just takes it one more step and puts it together that's in a form that summarizes it rather than you having to go through every website.
Yeah, I mean, at a simple level, original search, Google search was keyword based. We can now use natural language idea based searching, if you want to call it, and that is that's a whole different level of complexity and value.
So one of the things that companies are really wrestling with today is this shortage of talent, especially in certain skill set areas. And I think the latest numbers are that there's probably around 10 million job openings just in this country. How does AI alter that perpetual war for talent?
Yeah, I think, that's always great people, as you well know, great people are always worth their weight in gold, and they're always hard to find. And as CEO, you have to build a organization that understands that the only real way to grow your organization is to attract great people and make them productive as quickly as possible. And so there's always going to be a war for the best talent. AI certainly, again, can help in some of these areas, can minimize some of the repetitive tasks that maybe don't have as high value to the organization. But we worried when cars came along that we were going to put all the horse people out of work, and we worried every time there's been these changes in technology that there wasn't going to be any work for people. And instead, we've had the opposite impact. We've had more jobs available.
And, you have then different needs for proficiency as well. We've been talking about AI more as a discretionary tool, a really good one, but a discretionary tool for leaders and at all levels. But is it a prerequisite now? Is AI a prerequisite for certain roles?
Yeah, I think it's quickly becoming that way in certain areas. Content generation, marketing content generation is an area where, sales enablement, some of those areas are areas where you're really probably behind the curve if you're not already engaged in some sort of use of the technology. Customer support, again, often, a lot of companies struggle with having the resources to provide customer support at the level the customer would like. This could commoditize that function, make it much more affordable and able to service people much more effectively. And so I think in some of those areas, if you're not already engaged pretty full-throated on a project to use it, I think you're behind the curve.
So if you're a senior leader and you know how to spell it, you've read the articles, you kind of know how it's used in the company. How do you get started personally?
Yeah, I think you just got to jump in, right? There's nobody who's an expert per se. I mean, there's nobody that has more than a few months of experience. So you've got people running around saying they can do great things for you because they've done it once. And so, at this point, it behooves you to jump in. And that's what really reminded me. And when I wrote the memo to my employees, I was like, this feels very similar to when I was 15 and went to a science fair and saw the first real personal computers and some of the uses. You knew it was going to be a big thing, but there was nobody that knew everything about it. And you just had to jump in and start playing with it. And if you wanted to be good. And I think this is kind of the same thing. Nobody knows the answers at this point, but it obviously is a valuable technology. And I think the people who leverage it and get good at it, it's going to provide tremendous career value to them.
Over the summer holidays, I was at a family gathering and we had a bunch of young people around. We were talking about something and people were talking about what da 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 da. Anyway, I whipped out my phone and fired up ChatGPT and found the answer. And I heard this conversation in the background. Is he using ChatGPT? How does he know how to do that? Isn't he too old for that? It's an app essentially that you download, and you just have to start using. So you can't fear it. You just have to, as you say, maybe somebody has to show you how to download the app or sign in or whatever, but just start using it because it's pretty intuitive.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is you don't think about it, right? One story I tell, I remember when my, now 20-year-old, but was 5 or 6, and you're trying to get her to go to bed at night, and she's asking the questions that only 5 or 6-year-olds can ask. And, I'm like, I don't know, dear. I don't know the answer to that question. She says, just Google it, Dad.
Exactly. Yeah. Ask ChatGPT. She knows.
And that's right. Now a 6-year-old's going to say, just ask Siri, ask ChatGPT. They're going to know the answer, right?
Yeah. And, Siri and Alexis have kind of introduced us to ChatGPT and some of these other AI tools. And that's, so if you're not used to it, it's the same thing. It's like asking Siri. Any other applications in business that we haven't discussed that you're talking about?
Well, I think, that's the thing, is there are going to be many creative applications, just like the internet opened up all kinds of business models that we didn't think about before because they just weren't possible. I think this generative AI broad field is going to open up many business models that we can't imagine. Now, in retrospect, we're going to go, why didn't we think of that? Because it was so obvious. But because you have this commoditization of content generation and conversation and even graphics and images, you've got all kind of things going on. And that's why the writers in Hollywood, I guess, are on strike, because they're scared they're going to be replaced by some ChatGPT clone.
Well, that's a good way to guarantee it, just to go on strike and you force everybody to start using it. I'm not sure. I think I would show up for work. It's the first thing I would do if I didn't want AI taking my job. So any other resources that you're pointing CEOs and other leaders to consult?
Yeah, so I follow numerous people. I mentioned Ethan Mollick, professor at MIT, very cutting edge on using it, talking about its appeal in education. There are several blogs and podcasts that I think are valuable, depending on, kind of where your industry is and where you come at this from. But again, it's brand new in the grand scheme of things. And so the best way to learn is to try it and see how it works for you and see what you can get out of it.
So don't worry about being behind the 8 ball on this one. Jump in, download an app or two and just start playing with it.
That's right. And maybe give it to your kids and let them play with it too, and they can help you.
yeah, they'll tell you what you're missing.
That's right.
Joel, great to have you on the show today. Thank you.
Good to be with you, Steve.
And thanks to all of you for listening into CEO Perspectives. Every week, I'll be joined by a prominent thought leader to provide insights on the issues of our time. We'll cover leading topics in economics, public policy, ESG, and more. Please share CEO Perspectives with your colleagues, with your friends, with everybody who knows how to spell AI. I'm Steve Odland, and this series has been brought to you by the Conference Board.
You have been listening to CEO Perspectives, a podcast by the Conference Board.